and you are watching SCW, the wrestling channel here on YouTube.com. Thank you for choosing the channel and choosing the video. Please subscribe right now. Leave in the comments in the comment section. Please like and share the video as well. My name is Steve. I'm joined by George. We're going to be talking WCW Monday Nitro for SCW Rewind, episodes 5 and 6. We're going into the month of October 1995 for you, and looking forward to covering that for you today. Both episodes in full. George, how are you doing? Are you looking forward to going all the way back to the mid-90s?
Definitely. It's great to get back in that SCW time machine yet again. So this should be a really nostalgic view back into the year of 1995.
It should be indeed, and looking forward to covering it. And we're going to be talking episode 5, the first episode, which was on the 2nd of October, was held in Denver, Colorado. And for me, personally, I think that just before we even get into doing the details, this has possibly been my favourite episode of Nitro already in the early stages. I happen to really enjoy this particular episode. Ric Flair does kick off the proceedings. He comes to the commentary booth where Eric Bischoff, Bobby Heenan and Mongo McMichael are. He takes the headset and he's to tell Double A Arn Anderson that later in the show he will be coming for him. Of course, it is a double main event on this show. We've got, of course, Ric Flair versus Arn Anderson coming later in the show. And the first off, we look at a video package with Lex Luger and Randy Savage. Of course, they have a big encounter this week as well. With these two matches here for you on Monday Nitro this week, do you get that big fight feel?
Yeah, it's a bit like show one. You're feeling like you're definitely going to get your money's worth in terms of the viewership. It's worthwhile sticking into it. So no, I think definitely this is pay-per-view quality match on a Nitro for sure.
Absolutely. It feels like you're giving some of your biggest matches away for free. Is this a great idea to do to get the eyeballs on your product, or is this matches that should be saved for pay-per-view?
I think they've got to do what they had to do. They had to try and get the brand of WCW out there at that point. So I think it's a good move.
Yeah, I do agree with you as well. I mean, like you say, they were the number 2 company at that point, and what better way to get people watching your product? And you've got these big main event superstars. Arguably, the main event talent is much better than WWE's at this point, or we should say the World Wrestling Federation's at that time. And yeah, why not put some of the biggest boys against each other in the main events here? And like we said, we had a video package recapping what we'd seen before with Savage and Luger, saying where Luger wants to take on the big boys and Savage saying he's the biggest boy. We get the recap of the Giant chokeslamming both of them later in that show. We, of course, covered those angles beforehand. We go to the match itself, and an interesting note, of course, there's always little World Wrestling Federation digs. We get an announcement from Eric Bischoff over commentary saying that Mike Tenay is on the WCW hotline, giving away all the Raw results for you for free. And Mongo even says that you can have it on speaker in the background while you're watching Monday Nitro. It's as dirty as it gets. Was you a little bit of a fan of this?
I thought it was a low blow, so to speak. But yeah, they had to do what they had to do. I get the intensity. Because bear in mind, at that time, WCW hadn't sort of gone on a winning run for a while. They weren't winning week in week at that point. So clever move.
Yeah, certainly indeed. And of course, it's just to remind people, pre-taped and we're live as well. So certainly an interesting way to go. We got Savage and Luger. I thought it was a lengthy match for a Monday Nitro match, which was really good to see. We go towards the closing stages of the match. Randy Savage and Lex Luger, they going from out the turnbuckle. Savage reverses it and throws Luger back to the turnbuckle they came from. Of course, this leads to the referee who was standing there to a ref bump. Savage takes advantage. We can see a scoop slam, and Savage goes to the top rope. We see his elbow drop from the top rope. We think that it's going to be a 1, 2, 3. Of course, the referee is not in position to make the count. The Giant comes down to ringside, comes into the ring and actually chokeslams Randy Savage. He leaves the ringside area. Lex Luger, when he comes around, picks Randy Savage up and obviously puts him into the torture rack, which leads to Lex Luger getting the victory. A very interesting way, the way this has played out. Of course, Lex Luger was chokeslammed by the Giant the week previous, but here the Giant is solely just looking out to take out Savage and not Luger. The fans with a very mixed reaction at the end of this match, wondering whether to cheer or boo Lex Luger. He definitely is an in-betweener at this point. The questions do start to get to be asked. Is Lex Luger a part with the Dungeon of Doom? Time will have to be told on that one. But from looking at this on this particular match, on this particular evening, an explosive start to Monday Nitro.
Yeah, what a big match to start the show. I think this did a really good good job of continuity from the Giant sort of attacking Savage again. You're once again getting them questions about Luger, which make it critical viewing to carry on watching. I really enjoyed that match, despite the sort of sloppy referee spot that happened towards the end. It was a fun match, and I think definitely they did the right move. It would be silly for Luger to have signed that contract to leave WCW straight away. And the fact that you're giving Lex Luger win, I believe, since he came back here on a big show, if that makes sense. So I think, it was a good angle. I really like the way that the commentators are playing up the Lex Luger thing. I think that makes it interesting. It's a very interesting dynamic.
Very much just so, indeed. Like you say, it's Luger's first victory, I believe, on Nitro since his return there. So, and to get it against a big name like Savage definitely puts him towards that main event picture, which is really good. It asks the questions it needs to ask. The storyline develops further. There's a lot of interest and a lot of intrigue here, and I look forward to seeing how it's going to play out. Yeah,
definitely. I think also another thing I have to give him credit to, this once again made the Giant look $1 million. The Giant at this point is on an absolute wrecking spree. Like, bear in mind, he's destroyed Hogan once. He's destroying people, and I think this is what you need to do if you're going to have a title contender. Hogan at that point, you need to make him look unstoppable, which is what they're doing at this moment. Again,
absolutely. The Giant here does look, like you say, he's $1 million, and he really is coming across like the main event player, the guy that can end Hulkamania at that stage. We move on then next, and we get a little bit of light relief after such a big storyline, and probably my favourite part of Nitro each and every week when that music hits. It's Disco Fever, that's right. Mr. Disco Inferno comes onto that entranceway. He's not meant to be there. I believe we're supposed to be having our next match, but of course, Disco wanted to get a bit of TV time, showing off his disco moves. Eddie Guerrero's music hits. Of course, he's supposed to be in the ring action. He actually yells at Disco Inferno for him to leave the entranceway, and we get towards our next match, which a technical masterclass, Eddie Guerrero against Dean Malenko, the man of 1,000 holds. I absolutely love this. Before we go into just talking about the match here, there was a fantastic line on commentary where, of course, Steve Malenko is known as the man of 1,000 holds. Steve Mongo McMichael explains on commentary that he's seen a sex book of 101 positions. And Eric Bischoff actually replies to him saying, "Heenan, if you dare say anything to that, I'm cutting your mic." I don't know. I just found that extremely hilarious to listen to. But to go into the match in itself, there's a slightly disappointing note with this. Of course, Hogan does actually arrive to the arena in a limo. We cut from the match completely, which to me, it feels like the competitors are not important, despite seeing a technical masterclass between Malenko and Guerrero. We go to backstage then, as we say, to see Hogan. He is actually with his neck brace coming out of the limo. Hogan says he wants to put an end to the Giants' tactics, even though Jimmy Hart is telling him he shouldn't be there. Hogan says, "Are you with me or against me?" Jimmy Hart says he is with him. And Hogan says at this point, it is all about the little Hulksters. We go back to the ring, and we get the conclusion of the match between Eddie Guerrero and Dean Malenko. Again, both guys giving absolute perfection of a performance. We see a lot of counteracts in the wrestling. We get to a point where Dean Malenko seems like he wants to counter one move. Eddie Guerrero counts it to another to make a roll-up, and we get a 1, 2, 3. It's quite a quick finish. It's not a decisive win here. Dean Malenko says that Eddie Guerrero gets lucky and would like a rematch, which both agree to, and a handshake. So we know we're going to get these two against each other again later down the line. And hopefully the next time will not involve a big cut in the middle. George, I need to get your thoughts in this. And we're going to start off back at the beginning of the match. Eddie Guerrero and Dean Malenko at the start of the match looked like it was technically perfect. How disappointed was you when this cut to the back?
Yeah, it's disappointment. You clearly can see that WCW are putting all their eggs in one basket with Hogan again, which if you can't build up future talent at this point, this relative to your company, I think that's a big mistake. And when you look at it, I think a lot of it told a very good story. Despite the crowd not being into it, the crowd really didn't get into it. You look at the live stream, if that makes sense. But it was a fantastic match ahead of its time. It clearly was a step up from ECW, if that makes sense. I clearly felt the wrestlers were stepping up from what they'd known in ECW at that point. But it was a good match. It was great that they might have a rematch. The cutting away from it kind of ruined it a bit for me, but I really would like to see these two wrestle again. I'm pretty sure we're going to see that in WCW going forward.
Absolutely. I hope we get to see many matches between these two going forward. But you do mention about the crowd there, and they were a bit silent during this match. And I believe Eric Bischoff's wording during this match was that the crowd are so quiet because they cannot believe how great and technically good this match is. Believing to the rumour mill, was there a little bit of a reason why this could be instead?
Yeah, I think look like this. Apparently, the way the card was advertised, they were told before they went into the venue that there was going to be a world title match involving Hulk Hogan and Shark, supposedly. and also apparently the tag title match was going to be on the card. Clearly, when you're not getting, you had Lex Luger and Macho Man, and you had obviously this fantastic masterclass. I think the fans a little bit at that point thought they probably weren't getting their money's worth, which I don't know. I think I'd much rather see the other two matches we saw, to be fair, than what was. I'm sure you'd think the same, probably.
Yes, I do indeed. To be honest, really, I can understand people want to see title matches. Absolutely would be fully on board, and that's exciting. But the matches we got are pay-per-view quality matches. And like you say, I suppose at this point, Eddie Guerrero, Dean Malenko, perhaps relatively unknown to people at this stage. But of course, when we look back at it now, I mean, how two great names in Eddie Guerrero, probably arguably one of the greatest of all time, Dean Malenko, a technical masterclass, and of course these two go on hopefully for big futures in WCW, and we look forward to seeing where it will go with them two going forward. But it's very interesting. I mean, of course, the two teams that were meant to be involved with the tag team match do appear later in the show, but just not in a match. So let's move on in the show, and we can bring them into it. Mean Gene Okerlund is in the ring with Hogan and Jimmy Hart. And since the Giant's now here, Hogan says that as the Giant's not going to come out to him while he's in the ring, he is going to go to him in the back. Hogan goes out the ring and gives high fives to all the little Hulksters, if you want, going around the ringside area. And very interesting, as he's just about to go up the rampway, he does the last high five. He gets what looks to be some sort of sand thrown in his eyes from a woman in the crowd. We get a big deal of it made on commentary. A woman from the crowd has thrown in Hogan's eyes and has come over the barricade and starts attacking Hogan with what looks to be some sort of stick of some description. And then, of course, it's that's no woman. It reveals itself to be Kevin Sullivan. Of course, Kevin Sullivan doing his absolute best here of sort of shock TV. We see that the Giant and Zodiac come down to the ring as well. The attack is on Hogan. The neck brace is taken off. And, of course, we see what was done a couple of weeks ago to make the neck brace be on Hogan to begin with. A twist of Hogan's neck in the ring, a big shock value at this point. How can Hogan overcome this with Halloween Havoc only a couple of weeks away? It goes on to continue. So much in this segment, so Georgia will come to you very shortly. But Kevin Sullivan wants to get as much heat as possible, actually shaves off Hogan's mustache, which I think for the time is groundbreaking. I think that that sort of thing against Hogan, you'd have never seen that in the World Wrestling Federation. So this is groundbreaking, I think, for something done of someone of big star power as Hulk Hogan. We see that the American males tried to make the save, but they are taken out by the Giant and Zodiac. The Giant chokesams both of these guys. So your tag champions supposed to be in the tag title match here. Clearly, that's not going to be happening after that big chokeslam. The Nasty Boys come to try and attempt to make some effort afterwards as well. They also taken out by Zodiac and the Giant. 2 more chokeslams from the Giant. Again, the Giant looking like $1 million. And even Kevin Sullivan looks to use some of that shaving to go towards Hogan's hair. So, all bets are off here. It feels like Hogan is willing to put these guys massively over the Dungeon of Doom. Such a big segment here. I think that this is probably groundbreaking for its time. George, I need your thoughts on it.
Excellent segment. I felt it was really well booked. Let's look at the positives of it. So I like the way Hulk Hogan ultimately was at the hospital with the young fan. I think that's a really good base statement. I'm pretty sure it was true, which was great. Really gets the crowd on his side. And I really like the way that you're thinking Hogan's obviously going to get away with it, being attacked. He's selling the neck injury, which is genius. I like continuity there. And then the way he's getting attacked, this is a great 80s angle. I feel that he's when Kevin Sullivan dressed as a woman. It's different. It's something you wouldn't expect. And I think it really, it's the unexpected, which fitted Nitro perfectly at that time. I really like this whole angle, the way that they did it, the way that Giant's once again taken out Hogan's. You got the Zodiac there, a bit like a spare part. And the way they shaved the splash off, the reaction for the crowd, they were dead silent. Another couple of anecdotes I quite like was they were almost insisting that they were going to shave Hogan's head off, and then Zodiac had a bit of a funny turn. Going back to his Brutus the Barber Beefcake gimmick, it's like he was in contradiction of whether to do it or not, which was quite nice. Or it's quite a good on his past gimmick and their past relationship between Hogan and Beefcake. But the fact you're getting the tag team champions, the Nasty Boys come out. I'm not a fan of having your tag team champions here like get destroyed. I get the Giants on a push. The Giants obviously unstoppable. It would have been better. It would have been better if you put jobbers out there instead of your tag team champions. But overall, a fun segment. And the questions are: will Hogan make it to Halloween Havoc once again? Which is excellent. Another good question you're creating again. Yeah,
absolutely. And I agree with a lot of the points you make there. It does go to show with tag team wrestling that it's not seen so important at this stage in Monday Night Nitro we have to remember that the other match that was scheduled a couple of weeks earlier led to a very quick tag team title change when those teams were not even supposed to be putting the belts on the line. It was a quick throwaway.
I think, to be blunt, I think WCW's main really was Hulk Hogan, and if they look to him as the main money drawer, if that makes sense. You've got obviously Lex Luger, Randy Savage kind of underneath that, if that makes sense. But they're all about the people that are over as such, rather than up and coming people that could be over down the line, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. I think you made a great point there. Well, Bobby Heenan was loving all of this on commentary, I must say. The laugh that was coming out of him, seeing Hulk Hogan have his moustache shaved and a part of his head shaved as well. But Eric Bischoff, I think, asked the $1 million question here. Where was Lex Luger during this? Why did he not come and make the save? And he brings up the point, we know with Savage. Savage was taken out on a stretcher. So during some point, we didn't see in Nitro. And we see that Luger was perfectly fine and didn't come and make the save. Heenan suggests that maybe Luger was minding his own business. Again, as future questions on Lex Luger, which side does he lay on? Is he on the face or is he on the heel side?
Yeah, it's great. You get that question yet again, which is further building on the angle, which is clever. This is a great long-term angle that they're planning out here.
It certainly is indeed. Well, we go towards the main event of the show then, and it is Ric Flair against Arn Anderson, a full brawl rematch here between these two. They're the classic at full brawl, and they've got some television time here as well. We'll go towards the end of the match, and Ric Flair sticks on the figure 4 leg lock on Arn Anderson here, and it looks like, for me, something could be slightly off time here, but I'm going to get your thoughts on it in a minute. Pillman comes to the ring to make the save, does a splash off the top onto Ric Flair, but before that splash is made, the bell is rung, which implies to me that Arn Anderson actually gave up here at this point. I wonder if Arn Anderson was meant to give up, or if this was meant to be a DQ finish.
Maybe, potentially. I think the fact is you have to get Ric Flair some momentum back. He clearly lost to Anderson at full brawl, so it's a follow-up, but I enjoyed this match, despite Ric Flair being slightly off par. It's justifiable, though. If you look at Flair at the time, he's coming off of an eye operation at that point. Apparently, he'd had some medical operation less than 2 weeks earlier. So the fact he was out there resting was very brave anyway. But this was okay. It wasn't as good as their full match, but based on the circumstances, I thought they did the best they could. And this did like a main event, even though the crowd probably weren't into it. They didn't seem...
No, I would agree with that. And yeah, like you say, when you've got limited time to try and make as good a match as possibly you can, I mean, this is the best they could do in that time spell. I mean, they had about 20 minutes of full brawl to put an absolute masterpiece. And with the circumstances of Ric Flair as well, no, I think it's a job well done here. And of course, the heels coming out looking on top here, you know, destroying Ric Flair after the match as well. We come after commercial break and we go back to Eric Bischoff. And he actually says that Ric Flair had got permission from Bockwinkel and agrees to next week Ric Flair and Arn Anderson in a steel cage. So you've got your main event set for the next week of Nitro. Are you looking forward to seeing these two in the cage?
I am. I'm a fan of this, that they're creating stuff for next week. That's a great thing that I think probably the current product doesn't do so much, which I think it's great. And what's quite interesting, Steve, I don't know if you was aware of it, the whole Flair Arn Anderson setup, they've had this 2-week program. It's all come up in panic. WWE had caused them to panic at this point. What do you think of the way WCW have kind of responded to this sort of ratings battle by having Arn Anderson 2 weeks on the trot, and the fact you can have a steel cage on TV at this point?
It feels that WCW are willing to raise the stakes, and like we've seen with other parts of them, you know, bringing, you know, WWE's results on television and stuff like that, they're doing what they need to get on top, and they don't mind playing dirty. If they have to raise the stakes and raise the bar, that's what they will do. And no, it's interesting to see, and it feels that here with WCW, they're going to give arguably people what they want or what they feel will get people to change the channel, because they feel, well, if we put on a steel cage match, this will be what fans will want. We've got a chance of getting the ratings, and I think that's clearly all it comes down to.
Yep.
Well, I tell you what, that was the episode 5 of Monday Nitro on the 2nd of October. As an overall, and like I said, I believe that was my favourite Nitro so far. So action-packed, such a quick watch. You could breeze through 45 minutes in no time. Would you have the same impression with this, George?
It was a really good episode. I think it was definitely the best episode they've had since one. And the way they're building Halloween Havoc at this point is really clever. Loads of stuff went on, and you didn't get a sort of second to stop, really. It was a really quick watch. I mean, I really enjoyed watching it back.
Yeah, I would say the same. Actually, looking at it, I really thought so highly of it. It made me look forward to going into the next week, which of course was from Chicago, Illinois, on Monday, the 9th of October, 1995. We got a recap of the previous week with Hogan and the Dungeon of Doom to kick off the show before we got the credits. First time they'd done that, and it seems to be something we see very regular in wrestling today, where we get a recap of what happened the week before. So for this, at that particular point, I suppose you could argue that was something that we didn't see so often. That would be groundbreaking.
I think it's clever. I think you clearly want to remind people that may not have seen last week what the integral parts of the story are. So I'm a big fan of that. I'm really like that going forward.
Absolutely. Of course, Chicago, Illinois was the host of the show. Mongo McMichael played for the Chicago Bears. It was close to the 10-year anniversary of Chicago winning the Super Bowl, and the commentators were all wearing Chicago colours on this particular evening. They made the announcement as well, Eric Bischoff, saying that there was a restraining order so that the Giant and Kevin Sullivan were not allowed in the building after what had happened last week. Sting come to the commentary area, and of course takes the headphones as it becomes ever so popular. And he says that something needs to change with Luger and Savage. And later in the night, I have got an idea which I think can solve the problem. Already you've got an idea there, thinking, right, I need to stay tuned here because Sting is promising me something here. Probably arguably what was my opinion, that my favourite feud at the time there, Luger and Savage in WCW, and he's offering a solution to what should get the two faces back on side. So for me, I was fully invested in this part. Did it have the same intrigue for yourself?
I like it. You're creating seeds and planting seeds of stay tuned. Exactly what you said, which is, yeah, I agree with it. I think it's great to create them seeds so people got a reason to stay watch the.
Absolutely. Well, I tell you what, if title matches were promised last week and not delivered, we got a title match to kick off the show this week. Sting goes to the ring to defend his United States Championship against the Shark. A very quick match between these two. Not too much to really discuss, really. Sting hits the Stinger Splash in the corner, goes to the top rope and hits a flying crossbody to pick up the victory. Does this kind of devalue the Shark that he gets defeated so quickly?
Yeah, the problem is I think you look like a Shark at that point, which was, for anyone who doesn't know, was Earthquake in WF. It's a bit of a jobber. He's sort of a luminary in the Dungeon of Doom. And this didn't really do anything for anybody. I felt it was a really quick match. But I was going to see Sting go over. I don't know if it's just yours, just me, but seeing Sting with just the United States, he really sort of should be higher up the card, which is it's refreshing really to see him sort of with such a low title.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I was a fan of his United States title run because I thought he added a lot of credibility to the belt. But I do agree with you. It kind of comes across that if you're not Hogan, this is the best way to utilise the thing because he's not going to be in the main event while Hogan is around as the top babyface. So, yeah, it really strengthens your point you made earlier in the episode with Hogan and how all the money and the eyes are just on him.
Yeah, definitely agree with you. Spot on.
We get another recap of Hogan and the Giant from the week before. Is it a bit now overkill that we've seen it twice in the first 10 minutes of the show?
I get it. It's all about Halloween Havoc. I think the way WWE look at it is the only way they're going to draw people into the pay-per-view at that point would be Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan's got to be everywhere. It's just like the Halloween Havoc is the Hulk Hogan show, if that makes sense. But it's a shame, really, that the rest of kind of the promotional material for the event isn't really the other matches they built. But it is a bit of an overkill, but I get it why. Obviously, pay-per-view buys at that point were important. Yeah,
absolutely. And of course, this is probably, they're trying to make this the biggest match since Hogan versus Andre, which would have been from WrestleMania 3. So I understand totally why they're trying to do it. We go to the following match, which is Sabu versus JL. Interesting note for people that are unaware of this masked wrestler. Actually, JL is Jerry Lynn underneath that mask, which I found really fascinating when looking that information up. And I thought I would like to bring it to this show. And of course, he's in the company for quite a while to come as well, Jerry Lynn, before his ECW days. So look forward to covering a lot of JL through the early part of Monday Nitro. But we go into the match itself, and these two extremists against each other. JL jumps off the top rope, which is countered into a power bomb, and what had been countered earlier in the match with a rope break was not counted the second time. Sabu picks up the victory with the camel clutch. What were your thoughts with this match? I thought it was quite a decent match between the two.
It was a great match. Two ECW originals. My observations of it were I couldn't believe how over he was. The crowd were really into him, which was quite impressive considering he'd barely been on WCW TV at that point. And my other thought was that I was shocked to see Sabu. I was surprised we got another Sabu match, but this was a really good match. I think my only of it wasn't really kind of with the wrestlers. It was more the fact that they put away just as Sabu did his table spot, apparently, which I don't know why you wouldn't show that on TV. And another interesting thing, I don't know if you picked this up, Steve, on the audible, that throughout this match, there was a large chance of Hulk Hogan sucks, which I thought was quite interesting. The fans already venting their hatred towards Hulk Hogan at that point, which was strange at that time.
Yeah, it feels like the fans were starting to tire of Hogan and his reign at the top because, of course, Hogan's been champion for such a long time, hasn't he? I believe he's had the belt since Bash at the Beach '94, so this is more than a year at this point, probably even a year and a quarter. 15-month reign as WCW champion. So, yeah, I mean, we go back into it, and like you say there, I mean, they cut off to commentary. It feels like it's a timing issue a little bit here with Sabu and JL, with why that table spot wasn't there. But at the same time, like you say, why wouldn't you want that on TV? And Sabu massively over the crowd. I totally agree with you. Chicago was crazy for the guy. And it shows that, yeah, obviously, people were starting to get into that bloodthirsty, real-life feel of wrestling at that point in the 90s. It just goes to show what was to come later on in the business. But we cut to the commentators, and it felt like that even the next segment was being brought to the ring, because it wasn't long until they were back at ringside. Mean Gene with Sting and Lex Luger in the ring. Sting invites Randy Savage to the ring. All three are there together. Savage very quick to have a temper here in this environment, and he was reminded to him that the Giant has chokeslammed Savage and Luger, and Savage turns to Sting and says, well, hang on, why hasn't the Giant chokeslammed you? So Sting replies, telling Macho Man that he is paranoid and that he's got a way to actually fix this solution between the two guys. Both of them want to be world champion, so why not? They've both got matches at Halloween Havoc, which for me is first of my knowledge that it's been announced. Lex Luger has a rematch with Ming. Of course, they had a match a couple of weeks previous on Monday Nitro. And Savage has a match against Kamala. If both come through it, then why not both of them have a #1 contenders match against each other later in the night? Sting accepts it, but Lex Luger not so quick to accept this. He says, whoa, 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 you're putting words in my mouth. I've got an important match against Ming earlier in the night. Sting says, well, look, I thought you were a total package. I'm tired of being your babysitter. Luger actually loses his temper and eventually accepts the terms to this. So it looks like now that both Luger and Savage can be doing double duty at Halloween Havoc. I mean, for me personally, just to quickly say, I do feel that the Kamala Savage match and Luger Ming is a bit lackluster for pay-per-view. So this adds a bit more intrigue that both could be facing each other later in the evening. I assume, George, you would have the same impression with this.
Yeah, definitely. I think the fact that you've got Min again, I'm not a massive fan of that. I get that Luger probably was promised a win back then, his heat back off Min to a certain point, and Kamala hasn't really been seen for a while here, so I'm surprised he's been thrown in against Savage. I think this was an okay segment. It creates interest for Halloween Havoc. I really like the dynamic between Luger and Sting. They go back to the 90s. They had a lot of heat between each other like back then. I think that original WCW programming, if that makes it to that point. But this is an interesting segment. I think the only thing I'll question with it is it doesn't really make sense. This whole, if you look at this, I don't see why this would be a good idea. Like Sting suggesting this when he's meant to be kind of mending the fences between both. Yet he's suggesting they both fight. Doesn't really make sense, but I like it, the fact that you still don't know ultimately who's the bad guy and out of all three, which is you're still left asking questions basically.
Absolutely, even to Sting really at this point, because he's obviously trying to solve a solution here. But like you say there, the question mark is, well, hang on, you're trying to get both people back inside, but you're making them face each other. It also puts a question mark on Sting at this point.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. I think it's great that they've got that question and stuff like that. I think it's clever.
I mean, certainly, yeah. From a storyline perspective, we don't know what direction we're going in, and I think the thing is to find out. You have to tune in to find out. I don't think it's so obvious here of what is to go forward.
Yeah, no, I think it's good. I think it's clever. I think the fact that you don't know really who to trust, I think that's a really nice angle and dynamic to play already.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, as we go to our next scene, we get a daytime shot here of what looks to be a limousine pulling up outside of WCW office, and Chris Benoit gets outside of there. So we get our first shot of him on WCW television, and he looks up at the building and says, so this is where the big boys play. Obviously an iconic moment, really, now what we look back at it, because Chris Benoit went to do so much in the business, and of course, with obviously a lot of people are probably aware of how things ended with Chris Benoit as well. Of course, recently been covered on Dark Side of the Ring. Those are probably available on many different platforms now to go and watch if people haven't seen them. Highly recommended. But Chris Benoit, an exciting at the time acquisition for WCW.
Definitely. I think at that time, bear in mind, this is another ECW signing. So obviously the crowd probably didn't know how to respond to Chris Benoit. I don't know how well known he would have across America at that point. But the fact you're getting step out of limo, you're giving this character feel, and I really like the promotion the commentators did to make him sound like it's a bidding war for him, which is great. You're really getting people sort of invest in him almost straight away.
Absolutely, absolutely. Seen as a really big. I mean, it's not his first appearance for WCW. I should point that out. He has actually wrestled earlier in the 90s for WCW before he went off to Japan and ECW. So it's not his first time with the company, but certainly this time you can feel here that this is going to be a big time push here for him. He's definitely got a brighter future ahead. But we go back to the ringside, and it's that favourite time once again. It's Disco Fever with the Disco Inferno. He is back out once again, doing his disco moves, which I will not be copying for you on this podcast, sadly. But the music's interrupted once again this week by Big Bubba coming to the ring. Big Bubba's not impressed at all. But Disco doesn't seem to want to be defeated. He's actually brought music with him. He actually gets his little set here, plays the music, and he's still dancing along to it around the ringside. Big Bubba continues to the ring. We eventually get his opponent Hawk coming out to the ring, who also takes offense to Disco Inferno trying to take the TV time here. Very humorously done as well, as Hawk turns his back and goes back to the ringside. Disco Inferno steals a hat from the fan base and goes and puts it on one of Hawk's spikes, with Hawk completely unaware of what's going on here. When Hawk is aware of it, he turns to the back there towards Disco Inferno, who seems to have made his point. How do you feel with all this Disco Inferno stuff? It's the second week in a row that he seems to be getting TV time at the expense of another superstar, and this time he seems to want to retaliate when things are not going his way.
I think it's comedic, but it's kind of sort of average. I don't know whether this should be so far up the card. Bear in mind, you're putting like the United States title sort of first, and then you have this match, sort of this segment / match later on. But for me, it was okay. They're obviously getting the Disco Inferno over, but it was nothing special really.
No, perhaps nothing special. I do find the disco stuff entertaining. I must admit, I do find the music very entertaining. But I do always feel it takes away from the match itself. I mean, it did have a chance where it could take away from Guerrero Malenko the week before, but Disco wasn't done here. He did actually make a point of it this week, so I kind of felt I preferred this one this week because it felt like we're going towards a storyline at least. Disco Inferno comes back to ringside when Hawk is on top, gets on the ring apron. Hawk knocks him off and takes him out on the outside. So much that Hawk actually forgets he's got a match going on. Throws the Disco Inferno into the barricades down the ring entrance way and gets counted out. Now, it does make the babyface look bad, but perhaps we have a later program with Hawk and Disco Inferno somewhere down the line. Yeah,
definitely. I think you got a WF 91 dream match in sort of the Big Boss Man versus Hawk. I think it's sort of me. I felt like I was a kid again a little bit watching them two wrestle, but this was okay. The match was very sloppy. I'm a bit annoyed that really I don't think this would all make sense if they pay off Hawk and Disco, but the fact they probably won't do it just felt like a total waste of time really. I just think it was filling TV at this point.
Yeah, potentially indeed, especially if it gets thrown on one of the different shows. I suppose there's a reason to tune into a Saturday night or the Sunday show, but at the same time, if it's not going to be concluded on the night show, which we don't know at this stage, if it will be or won't be, certainly wasn't announced for next week anyway. We have to wait and see what will happen going forward with the Disco and Hawk, but Big Bubba picking up the victory. We go back, and Mean Gene is with Hogan in the ring, and Hogan's not in the ring to start with. He introduced Hogan to the ring with Jimmy Hart, and to everybody's shock, when he comes out, it's not the red and yellow. Hogan, for the first time, is dressed in all black. No moustache either. Big talking point at this point. Shocking, if you want, from a TV's perspective. What were your initial thoughts when you first saw Hogan in black?
I think they're testing the future heel turn. I think they're just testing the waters here to see what the crowd reaction was. But it stood out definitely at that time. You'd never seen Hulk Hogan in anything but yellows. So it clearly fits the whole way that he's been sort of destroyed in the build-up. This the Giant at Halloween Havoc.
Absolutely, indeed. Well, we go on to the promo itself, and Hogan says he's in black because all the games are over. Hogan says he's going to play their game. And Hogan says that he wants the Giant right here, right now. Mean Gene has to remind him, look, hang on, that's not going to happen. You've got to wait till Halloween Havoc. The Giant and Kevin Sullivan have been told they are not allowed in. There's a restraining order on the two. Hulk Hogan goes off to then have a bash on the World Wrestling Federation. It feels, he says that an old promoter is now choking on his own ego. What were your thoughts for that?
Taking shots yet again, once again, sort of destroying the relationship between Vince McMahon and Hulk Hogan. Clearly, bear in mind, Hogan had left WWF at that point following the killing when he lost to Yokozuna. So it's interesting they're continuing finding these shots. But, it was refreshing. Clearly, the whole thing with this segment, you're getting the feeling that Hogan's a heel, and this was further emphasised by the way the crowd almost booed out the building again, which maybe the tide's turning at this point. Maybe the fans aren't into Hulk Hogan as they once were.
It certainly feels that way. I think you're spot on the money with that entirely. Hogan says that continues to keep with his promo work. We start to hear sirens from outside, and then we get a shot outside, and a monster truck pulls up. Of course, they have the monster truck theme going on for Halloween Havoc, and the Giant, of course, Dungeon of Doom with Kevin and Sullivan, and the Zodiac hanging out with this monster truck, all outside the arena. Police car chasing. They're not allowed into the building. Of course, Hogan leaves the ringside area and says that he is going to make his way to the outside. So this cleverly builds up the monster trucks for the pay-per-view. Yeah,
it's clever. You're using parts of the match already to create interest, to make people want to see more. I found this. I really like the way that they kept the Giant Hogan apart again this week, which I thought was not. But this week, I thought it was clever. They're really making people want to see Hogan get his revenge, which is great. Great idea.
Yeah, I think it was clever booking with this restraining order this week. Of course, we go to adverts. We come back. We find two policemen come towards the commentary table. It seems to be a very common theme now. A lot of the commentary times when you go to them three, it feels like there's always an interruption. The police whisper in Bischoff's ear, and it is announced that there is so many police outside, and they are keeping Hogan and the Giant apart. So it also makes you aware that you're not missing anything. The police have to get involved. It feels like this is a very high-stakes rivalry going on in WCW right now.
Yeah, definitely.
We go on into the main event, and of course, as promised, a steel cage match: Ric Flair versus Arn Anderson. Fairly quick match. This feels quicker than their match the previous week. We see Brian Pillman attempting to actually get into the steel cage. Of course, it's never one-on-one in the steel cage. We know that. But back then, you probably could sell it as that no one could get in the cage. Pillman tries to get into the cage. Flair knocks him off. Goes back into the ring as on top of Arn Anderson. Goes to put on the figure 4 leg lock. But as he goes to put the figure 4 leg lock on, he is hit in the face. What looks to be a nice clean hit. And to the surprise of everybody, a clean 1-2-3 victory. But of course, as you see in the replay, Arn Anderson's hand is taped. Perhaps brass knuckles or something is underneath that tape, which leads to Arn Anderson and Pillman with the victory. And of course, they escape after that. What were your thoughts of this main event?
Yeah, I thought it was okay, very quick. It's good to see a cage match on sort of the normal TV station. I thought it was okay. Once again, you're sort of getting Arn Anderson getting another big win off Ric Flair, which is surprising. I thought it's great the way they're building this hatred between Arn, Flair, and Pillman again, which is excellent. The crowd were entertaining; they were shouting "We want blood" throughout it, which I thought was quite comical. But this is okay. I thought this is what a main event should be. It's different. It was quick, and they did what they need to do. But I'm surprised that Arn won again. Were you surprised by that?
I was surprised that Arn won again, and personally, I will actually say that I was actually slightly disappointed with this match because I expected it to go on longer. A steel cage match for me, a big deal, a big reason for people to tune in. I thought we would have got a bit more. It's usually like a rivalry ender, which of course here it didn't do that. It's going to extend the feud, which is perfectly fine. But it's very interesting indeed how it all played out. I would have perhaps liked to have maybe seen one of the other matches not involved. Maybe we could have not perhaps bothered with Big Bubba and Hawk maybe that week. I'm not sure. But that's just from a personal opinion. I think timing here is the issue, and I think that this is one of the few occasions where we will probably say it's really good, really fast-paced action, but already at this early stage, you can tell Nitro perhaps needs to be a longer show. I don't know how you feel about that.
Yeah, I definitely feel that. I think the fact when you look at the end of the show, it's almost like the commentators had 2 or 3 minutes to waste. I do wish that they give them 2 minutes to the match. I agree with you there.
Absolutely, but Ric Flair does come to the commentary area once again and takes the headset off and actually breaks the headset, which I thought was very comical. I really like that. Absolutely. Flair going absolutely ballistic, saying it challenges to a 2-on-1 match next week and says that, you've definitely got me. I will try and find a partner, but you've definitely got me. The challenge is put out there. So we know that for definite that we've got a match between them this week. But you do spot on the money here. It do feels like there's a lot of time also wasted. They're building and talking a lot about the Halloween Havoc match once again with Hogan and the Giant. But Bobby Heenan did bring up a key sentence, which I do want to bring up to you very quickly, is that Heenan says that the wrestlers and him are tired of seeing him at the top. Do you feel that with the fans slightly turning as well, that this is almost like it's been actually noticed into WCW booking here and that it's actually been brought to light on television?
Potential. I think the thing is they're kind of want to try some new stuff to try and keep the product relevant. But the trouble is when they're so set on pushing Hogan as they have been in most of the shows so far, it makes things kind of hard to watch sometimes. But what I'm liking about Nitro so far from the ones we've seen is every week it's a cliffhanger. Every week you're having to watch next week, which is what I cry out for. I think it's that there's always a reason. You're always told at the end of the show this is what's happening next week, which I think for me in the modern product that's what's kind of missing to a certain point, that you don't know what's coming next week, Raw, SmackDown, etc. I just think it was a good night in that respect. I felt it did what it needed to do. Once again, you're going to have Ric Flair, Brian Pillman again together against each other with obviously Arn Anderson there. You've also got the question who's going to be Ric Flair's tag team partner if he gets one, which is a great question mark. Obviously, they probably will fill that. I'm pretty sure I know who it's going to be, but I'll pull that here. But no, it was a fun watch for me. What did you think of the show?
Yeah, it's a fun watch. It was definitely a quick show. I must admit I preferred the week previous purely because I wasn't so invested in perhaps some of the match quality this particular week. I mean, I do think Sting and Shark was very quick. I do think that Big Bubba and Hawk didn't really do much for me personally. I do agree with the nostalgic, by the way, from an early 90s perspective of wanting to see these two, but the match itself didn't have the same buzz for me. And the steel cage match, like I said, I would have liked to see it given more time. But overall, I still think it's a solid show. It's a quick, fast pace. There's things going on all throughout the time. And like you say, cliffhanger after cliffhanger. You need to know what's going to happen next. So you know, if you're watching Nitro at this point, you know that you're tuning in next week because you need to know what's going to happen. There's so many storylines. The plot thickens each and every week. You need to know who is on the good side, who is on the bad side here. What is going to happen with Hogan and the Giant? What is it going to get resolved with Savage and Luger? You know, there's so many question marks here, and we need to know with Ric Flair and with Arn Anderson and Brian Pillman as well who that tag team partner is going to be. So with the main event players, there's so much going on throughout the show, and there are some interesting characters to keep an eye on the undercard as well. Like I said, I do enjoy just the Disco Inferno just purely because I find him comedic, and I do as well. The likes of Benoit, Guerrero, Malenko. There's a lot of great talent there, and just exciting week after week, and you need to know more.
Yeah, there's always the question of what's coming next, which I think is great for that time period, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. You mentioned about a minute or two ago about cliffhangers on Raw and SmackDown. Do you think for the modern day, do you think the shows would benefit massively through TV ratings and intrigue if they were to add a bit more of cliffhangers into the shows?
I think it would. I think obviously it's probably a lot more paramount now based on what's on COVID and stuff like that. But for me, I just think it's a shame really we're just ending shows like this week's Raw, for example. We ended during Big Show, and it's just there's no sort of this is what's going to happen. You're not creating a number one contender for Drew, which I think is kind of missing. Whereas WCW in '95, prime example, it's going to be Hogan Giant, and they're building that continually to the pay-per-view payoff, which it's just hard. I think it's really, really hard. I think the whole dynamic of having a 3-hour show compared to 45 minutes makes things a lot more maybe harder for WWF because they want to get everybody on the roster. And I think the problem is they're set in their ways of what the main events are going to be. They don't really change that or go outside the box very often.
Yeah, no, some good points made there. And like you said, they've made things clear with Hogan and Giant. They're already building that future number one contender as well there with the likes of potentially Savage or Luger. So they're always looking to the next step as well, it feels at this point, WCW. And you could argue that WWE, like you say, that in this current moment, this particular week, they could have perhaps looked at making who was going to be the next guy to go after Drew. Maybe with the next set of tapings they do, maybe we can get an idea of that going forward because it looks like things are going to remain taped for WWE for the meantime. From the report I've read that we could even be getting over the next 7 days 3 SmackDowns, 3 NXTs and 3 Raws all recorded. So it looks like it will put us in good stead leading into Money in the Bank. So hopefully we'll have a clear indication of where they're going to be going with each and every one of their storylines. And it'll be interesting as well if they keep doing the throwback stuff as well. What's your interest with the throwbacks? Do you find them entertaining?
It's good. Back. I just wish we went back to a longer period, like much more further on rather than recent stuff. I think they've got such an archive clearly with the network and stuff. I think it's a great tool to promote the stuff that's available on the network by these flashbacks. But I think it's okay. I think they're clearly doing what they can. It's just a really strange time in wrestling. We are very lucky still to have wrestling at this time. I'm not ungrateful in that respect, but I'm just intrigued to see where they're going, what they're going to do. I'm sure WWF. Sorry, not WWF even. I'm sure they'll be they want to put out a good show, people to try and take people's mind off what's going on in the world. So I'm hoping that they kind of that really.
Yeah, let's hope they continue to do that. Like you say, we should not take for granted what we got. We're very grateful for the shows that we get, and health and safety looks to be coming first. And from reports read there, it looks like WWE are trying to take as many measures to comply with a lot of the rules that are going on as well. So that should be brought tonight as well. I look forward to seeing what is put together if those tapings do come through. And yeah, it'll be very interesting to see. But yeah, I mean, with what's going on with that and Money in the Bank, would you, if they do some throwbacks, would you want to see some classic Money in the Bank moments?
Yeah, why not? I think it's clearly, you forget how important that pay-per-view is throughout the yearly structure. Even I think it'd be a great reminder to see the famous matches. I really would love to see a CM Punk and John Cena match again. I think that would be a great throwback, but I don't know if we're going to get that based on the current dynamic of WWE and CM Punk, even though he's backstage next week.
Yes, he is back on WWE Backstage next week. I will look forward to checking that out. And like you say, there will be very interested to see how that will all play out. But certainly a Money in the Bank ladder match anyway would be really good. And who knows, maybe we might even cover some Money in the Bank leading into the pay-per-view as well. But of course, we will continue with WCW Monday Nitro as well. And possibly even the pay-per-views as we go in as well. Maybe we might even continue with those as well. Have a nice bit of continuity for those WCW followers that like to check out these videos. But is there anything else you'd like to add, George, before we close off this video?
No, it's been a great discussion. Thank you very much for having me again. Really enjoying these retro look backs, and I'm quite looking forward to the next episode of Nitro, so I'm really looking forward to watching that.
Absolutely, me too as well there. And like we say, you guys can keep up to every Thursday. We throw out one of these retro shows. And don't forget, Ask SCW is also back on the weekend for you this week. And get your questions in. Leave the hashtag Ask SCW, and they will be answered for you with a shout out on this channel. So yeah, without further ado, please like, share and subscribe. Without you guys sharing it and without enjoying and viewing it, we of course are just here for the fun of it, which of course we are here for the fun of it anyway, but we do appreciate your viewership as well. And yeah, like I say, do subscribe if you haven't already. But that's from us anyway. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time here on SCW. This has been SCW Rewind.